Hi and welcome back to the Tech Mentor. In today's video, I will show you how to become a master in using data validation in Microsoft Excel. Let's get into it. What is data validation in Excel? It is basically a feature that controls the type and value of data users can enter into a cell or into a range of cells. So you set a criteria for values that are allowed to be entered into a specific cell. In data validation, there are 7 types of criteria. You get a whole value, which would be a whole number, a decimal, a date, time, text length, list, and custom, which would be determined by a formula that you put in. So let's quickly just discuss each one of these. So the whole value will go there first. You can go to the ribbon on top here and click on data, and then you'll see here by data tools, this little one here is for data validation. So we'll just simply click on that. And in your allow, what do you allow in this specific cell? We'll say whole number. And then you've got different options. You can say numbers between a minimum and a maximum, not between, so it can't be between specific, equal to, not equal to, etc. So let's just do a simple one. We'll say between 2 and 10. So only values between 2 and 10 can be entered there. So if we were to say 5, that would be fine. If we were to say 11, it would give us an error and it won't allow that. If we were to say 5.5, which is between 2 and 10, it also gives us an error. So why is that? Because it only allows whole values or whole numbers, so integers. To allow decimals, we'll use the decimal one. So again, we'll do the exact same one here, but we'll go decimal, and then we'll say between 2 and 10 again. And now if we were to put in 5.5, it would take it. If we were to put 1.99, it will not take it, but it will take 2. So from 2 to 10, 10 would be our maximum. So 10.1 would not be accepted. Only decimals, numbers from 2 to 10 would then be accepted in this condition. Let's move on to date. So again, we'll go to data validation. We'll go to date. And then you can put dates not equal to less than, for instance. So let's go greater than. So if we were to put today's date, so we'll say 14 April 2025. If we were now to use yesterday, it would not accept it. If we use today, it would also not accept it, but tomorrow would be accepted. Now we can also change this and we can put a formula in here. So we'll say today. That means it will dynamically update every single day. So tomorrow it will not accept tomorrow's date. You have to choose something after that. So again, today will not be accepted, but tomorrow will be accepted. The time one, let's go to time here. And it would be between, again, all the same types of things, but just working on time. So we'll say 7:30 to 1 o'clock. So say 1 o'clock in the afternoon, we can type it in like this. And then we can say 12:30 p.m. It would still accept it. If we were to say 1 o'clock like that, it can still accept it. So you can basically type it in as international 24-hour format or AM PM. So you can also say 1 PM like this, and it would still accept it. Text length. Let's go to that one. Text length. Again, let's say not, a text length less than. So the maximum is 10 actual characters. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 will be accepted. If we were to add one more here, it won't be accepted. Why is that? Because it is set to less than. If we want to accept it up to that number, we will have to say less than or equal to, and then we can type 10 characters. This would work for spaces as well. So if we add a space there, the Excel reads it as 11 characters in that specific cell. So that will not be accepted. A list would refer to a drop-down list inside. So we'll go to list, You can choose it as a in-cell drop-down or not, but it would have to be something on a specific list. So we can just do yes, no, and it would now be, now you can just choose one from a drop-down list. We can also remove the drop-down list, and no will be accepted, yes will be accepted, anything else will not be accepted. And then the last one would be a custom condition, which would be a formula. So here you can type any formula. So let's say the cell must be greater than 5. Okay, so if we were to say 4, won't accept it, 5 won't accept it, but it will accept 6. Will it accept text? Yes, it will accept text. So we need to add some more conditions to it to allow only numbers, but we will get to that later on. Let's move on to the next part. So in data validation, you get different error alerts. You get a stop, a warning, and an information. Let's discuss each one of these. So I'm going to just use this as a whole number between 1 and 5, and then we'll go to the error alert and we'll put a stop here. So the stop will basically not allow you to put anything else if this is ticked that you have to show the error alert. So if we were to say 6, you will have to retry. You can either cancel it to clear the cell, or you have to retry and put in a valid number. You can also customize the error alert, and let's call it error value must be between 1 and 5. So now if we type in 6, it would say a value must be between 1 and 5. Warning is a little bit less severe than the error one. So let's do the exact same one here. We'll say a whole number between 1 and 5, and we'll choose the warning one here. And let's just call this one warning value must be between 1 and 5. So now if we were to type something out of the range, it would say value must be between 1 and 5, but it will ask you, do you want to continue, yes or no? You can cancel it to clear it. If you say you don't want to continue, you can retry, but it will allow you to accept a wrong value, even though there is a data validation applied to the specific cell. And then information would basically just give you an information. We'll do the same with this one. Between 1 and 5. We'll put it as information. Value must be between 1 and 5. And it basically just tells you. You can simply say cancel it, clear it, or you can say, okay, it will accept the value, and you just carry on. So those are the 3 different error alerts that you will get with data validation. Remember, to show the error alert, they must physically be ticked to show them. I'll just go back to this one, and I'll untick it, and now type an invalid value. You can basically just then carry on. So always make sure if you want to use it that they are ticked. Okay, let's move on to the next part. So what is an input message? So an input message would basically be a message that pops up when the user clicks on the specific cell. So let's do the same here. We'll say value between 1 and 5. We'll go to input message and we'll say requirements. Please enter a value between 1 and 5. So now if we click on this cell, it would basically give us our input message there. So you can basically put anything here. I'm sure you've seen a lot of things, and this is different. If you see it like this, it is not a comment or a note. Those things are something else, and this specifically refers to data validation. So in a case like this, you can put an input message without having to apply any validation. So we can just say any value here. It would allow any value. You can put in anything there, but it would still give you the requirements for that. Okay, let's move on and start with different types of data validation. Let's discuss range limits. So say you are going on a camping trip, but you've got a budget of 3,000 and you want to just calculate what needs to be spent on each different expense. So to do this, we will need to put a validation on to say that the sum of this range cannot exceed 3,000. To do this, we will select the range here, go to our data validation, and here we will use a custom formula. So data validation works on true. Basically, the condition needs to be true. So in this case, we want to say that equals the sum of this range here. We will just lock the range, lock it by applying an absolute reference to it. Must be smaller than or equal to 3,000. Okay. Now let's say we're going to spend 500 on our travel, going to spend 450 on our camping gear, 1,500 on accommodation, about 300 for food, 200 for our shopping there, and we want to spend 500 on entertainment. Now, it says here that the value doesn't match the data validation restrictions. Why is that? Because now our sum has gone over what our budget is. So we basically need to relook at these numbers. Maybe get some cheaper camping gear or get some cheaper accommodation so that we can fit everything into our budget. And that is basically how you can apply data validation to a range limit, the sum of a specific range in this case. Let's move on to the next part. So how to reject invalid dates. What we'll do in this cell here, we'll allow dates between two dates. So this would be a very simple one. We can just go to the date function and we'll say between. And let's make this the 1st of March 2025. You can also enter it another way. Let's put it as the 31st of March. So to enter it this way, you have to put the month first. So 3/31/2025, like that. If we were to type in 28 Feb, it would automatically not accept it. But anything in March 2025, it would accept. March 2024, it would not accept. Let's do the same thing, but on dates that change dynamically. So for this one, we can say the start date is today. So we'll just say today, and the end date will be 5 days from today. So we'll say today plus 5. So in this case, the date would be the 14th of April 2025. So up until the 19th of April 2025, it would still accept. Yesterday, the 13th of April 2025, it would not accept, and it would also not accept the 20th of April. But tomorrow, it would move on by 1 day because it would always look at today's date and today's date plus 5. If we want to reject specific weekdays, so say we only want to enter working days in here and not weekends, so we'll reject Saturdays and Sundays. We'll go here, and for this one, we'll use custom. And we will always use the AND formula. So the AND formula will give you a true or false, basically. So what we need to do in Excel, when we use the weekday function, we'll nest the weekday function in here. That would be our first logical argument in the AND function. So we'll use the weekday function here. We refer to this date, and it must not be equal to. So greater than, smaller than, and greater than. If you combine those two, it means not equal to. And then I'll say 1. So why do I say 1? Because in the weekday function, by default, 1 would refer to Sunday, 2 would be referred to Monday, 3 Tuesday, and so on. That would be our first argument. Our second argument will be weekday. We select our cell again, and it is not equal to 7. So right now to show false, because there's no date put in there, but let's put today, which is 14 April 2025, which is a Monday, and you'll say that it's true. So it would allow this date. Let's test this out in the data validation. So we'll go to custom and we'll just type that exact same formula. You can always just paste the formula on the worksheet and copy and paste it in. So it's weekday, that's our entry, not equal to 1, and weekday, our entry not equal to 7, and close the brackets for the AND function. And now if we were to type in a weekend, it would not allow it. So we can also put an error alert here. We'll say invalid weekday, cannot enter a Saturday or Sunday. Okay, 13 April 2025, and it would show us our custom error message. Let's move on to the next one. So how do we prevent duplicate entries? I'll do it on number range, and then I'll also do it on text. So I've put here the function to use is countIf. For most things, we will use the AND function because AND will always produce a true or false. You can do that, but you don't need to in this case. Again, what I'm going to do is test the function here, and then we'll apply it in our data validation. So we'll say countIf. So this is our range that we want to work on. Always make sure that you put it in absolute reference, and our criteria is, that is our criteria. This would refer to this. We don't put this in absolute reference because it needs to copy down to the next cell. Okay, and equals 1. So what does this do now? It would count if this cell in this range is equal to 1. If it's equal to 1, it's true, and it would allow that entry. We can do exactly the same thing just with the AND function, and I'll show you that it still works exactly the same. It's just extra typing and extra brackets to add there, so completely unnecessary. And as you can see, that works exactly the same. Okay, let me just remove this. So what we'll need to do is select the whole range here, and we'll go to data validation and go to custom. So we'll say count if in this range with absolute reference. We'll start with that cell because that's the first cell in the range, is equal to 1. Now, if we were to go to this one, now we are on D10, you will see that it's moved it to D10. So let's try and type in any of the other names, maybe Zoe Carter. You'll see it will not accept that. So now let's just say Zoe Bennett, which is not there. It would accept that. If we were to try that one again, it would not accept it. It works exactly the same with the number range. We'll go to custom again, countIf, your range. Make sure you put your range in an absolute reference. Select the first cell in your range and is equal to 1. So it has to be equal to 1. Entry must only be there once. And there we go. So that would be fine. Oh, that's not fine. It's already there. And that's how you can prevent duplicate entries in a range. Let's move on to the next part. Okay, this one is a fun one. So in this case, we've got product codes. The product codes have to start with 3 letters and then follow with 4 numbers. So it's quite a large function nested formula that we will use here. So what I'll do, I'll explain it on the side here as I type it out so that you can understand what it does. So first thing we will use here is the AND function. So AND basically checks whether all arguments are true and returns true if all arguments are true. That's it. If it's not true, it returns false. In this case, we've got conditions. The left 3 letters, left 3 entries in the cell has to be a text. The length of the entry must be 7 digits long or 7 characters long, and the right 4 has to be numbers. So that's what we'll basically do. So we'll start with is text. So is what text? Is the left of this one 3 characters? That's your first argument, is that text. Okay. The next one is the length, the total length. So we'll say len of that equals 7. It has to be 7. So that needs to be true and that needs to be true. And then our last logical condition is number, would mean the last 4, the value of the right, the cell reference, and the number of characters. And then let's just make sure that all our brackets are closed. So is the first 3 characters a text? Is the total length 7 characters? And is the value of the right 4 a number? That's basically what we're asking this AND function. And if all of those are true, it would return true. Otherwise, it would return false. Right now, it will return false because there's nothing in there. But let's just try ABC 1, 2, 3, 4, and you'll say that it changes. See that it changes to true. So what we can do, just copy this formula here. I'll escape, and then I'll apply the data validation here. So we'll go to custom, paste our formula here, just simply say OK. So right now it's true. If we were to say AB 1, 2, 3, 4, it will reject it because it is false. So we have to follow exactly what it says. Now let's just select the whole range. We'll type on data validation and it would say, it will basically ask us, yeah, do you want to extend data validation to these cells? We'll say yes. And say OK. So if we were to go onto that one now, it would refer to B4, to that specific cell. This one here to E10. Now we can just put a little input message here. Let's just call it product code. Let's enter a product code that starts with 3 letters and ends with 4 numbers. Example ABC 1, 2, 3, 4. So now on each one that you click here, it would tell you how to put it in. So 3 letters, 4 numbers, accepted. And that is basically how you can allow specific inputs only. Let's move on to drop-down lists. So there are a couple of ways that we can do drop-down lists in data validation. The first option is to basically just enter it manually. So we'll use weekdays on all of these. I'm just going to select the whole range there and we'll go to list. We'll leave it as in cell drop-downs. And now we can basically just, say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Let's just call it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then you can choose from here. Now, if we were to type Friday, it's not going to work. We'll get back to how to add it. To use the list from a specific range, select your range. We'll go there to data validation. We'll select list. And then our source, we can literally just select the range. You'll see that it automatically puts it as an absolute reference, which is perfect because then each one of these cells would refer to the exact same range. And simply say OK. And then you'll see you'll have the same options here, but a Sunday will not work. Let's move on to a named range. To name a range, there's a couple of ways to do it. We can go to formula, we can go to create from selection, or we can say define name, and you can now give it a name, weekdays or whatever. I'm going to cancel there. We can go to name manager. These two are already there because I've got tables in this workbook. And you can say new, and it will basically pop up the exact same pop-up as what it did with define name. Or a quick way would be just to select your range, go to the name box, and then we'll call this weekdays. Now, if we want to apply the data validation based on this range, which is weekdays. Select your range. We'll go to data validation list, and we'll say equals weekdays. And there we go, simple as that. So if you've got a whole lot of different ones, you've named them, you can simply just refer to that specific range. To do it from a table, so we've got this table. To get the name of the table, you can either go to formulas, you can go to your name manager, and it would show you. So right now we are in drop-down list. This is our worksheet, and you'll see here that this is table 1. Quicker way, without selecting the header, just select the rest of the range, and it would say there table 1. So to do this, we'll go to data validation, we'll go to list, and then we'll use the indirect function. So we'll say indirect, we'll open our brackets, then you'll use quotes or a single apostrophe. So depending on your Excel, it might work with 1 or with 2. Mine works with 2. And then we'll refer to table 1. So that would be the name of your table. Now, you might have a table with multiple columns, so you have to call the column name as well. So you'll use square brackets, and the name of the specific column would be the header of the column, which is days. Close the square brackets, close the quotes, close the normal bracket, and say OK. And then there you go. Works exactly the same. Again, Sunday is not there. It will not work. Now we want to update it. So we want to see Sunday now as well. In order to do it, I'll go through each one of them. For the manual one, you'll basically have to go and add here. So we'll have to add Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, like that. And then they'll all be there. The range, it is now currently locked to that range. So if we were to just type Sunday there, it would not update it. So we will have to go and update the range manually by selecting the new range. Okay, that would be the one option. Let's just go back to only the Saturday. The second option would be to insert a cell. So we'll move the cell down, and then we'll type Sunday there. And now you'll see, oh, sorry, I need to Saturday, then Sunday. And now you'll see that it's added it there automatically. But that means that you will always have to insert a cell above the last one in the specific range. To do it from a named range, we will have to physically go and edit the name. So we'll add Sunday there. We'll go to formulas, we'll go to the name manager, and we know that this one is weekdays, and we'll have to edit it like that. And then you've got Sunday there as well. So now it's basically changed the range for weekdays and included Sunday. With a table, it's always the easiest, because with a table you can just go to the very last cell in the table, press the tab button, we'll add Sunday, and it would automatically be there. So a table will always dynamically add it for you. Let's move on to dynamic drop-down lists. So in this case, as I showed you with the table, we can simply just do exactly the same. We'll say equals indirect. In this case, and it would help if I get the name of my table first. So it's called dynamic days. Sorry, let's try again. Okay, list, indirect, dynamic days, and the name of my column is days. Close the square brackets, quotes, and there we go. So if we update the list, Sunday, March, April, June, it automatically updates it, as you can see. With a range, you cannot do it with a named range. You can only do it if it refers to a specific range like this. But if we apply the data validation on this range here, and we were to add a couple of things now, but we say it's a list where we add a whole lot of things. March, April, June. Every single day we're adding, or other people are adding, and it only locks it to that first one. So that means we'll have to every time go and update the list, but there is an easier way to do it. So what we'll do, we'll use the old set function in this one. So I'll type it out, and let me just clear this here. This is how you clear it. You literally just select the range and just clear all. So this is how the offset function works. So the offset function has 5 arguments. First one is our reference. So our reference would be the first cell in our range. We put this in an absolute reference. We offset 0 rows, 0 columns. But with the weight, we have to include the count A. So the count A counts all cells in a specific range that is not empty, so no blanks. And the height would refer to basically the whole one. So you'll see I did not put this range for the list under anything. It's always best to have it in an open column, unless you know that you're never going to have more than 200 or 500 or how many ever entries, then you can select that specific range. So you can then go down to how many ever you wanted to allow and just put an absolute reference on that. But by selecting the full cell, so H to H, the full column H to H, it would allow that. So in the offset, it would count all the non-blanks in that specific range that you give it, and our width is 1. We'll close that, and as you can see, it then spilled this. So this is basically what it's going to do inside the list. If we now added Sunday here, it would add Sunday. It would add Sunday. March, it would add whatever you type there, it would add. Now, I'll show you what happens when we add something to the top of this. Best is to always have it right on top in row number 1. But let's just delete this here. I'll just copy this function. I'll select my range, go to my data validation list and paste it in there like that. And you'll see it's got the same as what is here. So we now add to it Sunday, today, tomorrow, next week, and all of those are in there. What happens if I were to type something here? It doesn't do anything here, but now it's added a 0 there. So in our drop down, it's now given us an empty cell, which is something that we don't want. So that is why it's always best to have this either on top or have nothing above it, so that it just gives us a nice clean drop-down list. And that's how you can create drop-down lists that dynamically updates as you update the list. Let's move on to dependent drop-down lists. So in this case, we've got some countries. In those countries, there are specific regions, so it must only give us the region based on the country. And in that specific region, there are specific cities, which would be based off that region from that country. So with this one, we're going to have to create a couple of named ranges. So I've already created quite a lot here. 5 different countries with 5 different regions, which can be a state or a province or region or whatever it's referred to in that specific country. And then for each one of those 5 different cities. So we'll have to name all our ranges. We can select this and then just give it a name as country, but I'll show you a much easier way. So we'll go to formulas. We'll select this first range here, but we include our header. and we'll say create from selection, and then create names from values in the top row. So what it will do, it will use the top row, our header, as the name of the range, and this would be everything that is in that specific range. So we'll just say OK. And then on our main, our very first, so this is the only one where we will use this specific method. We will use list and we will say country. So that is the name of this range here. And now you'll see all the different countries here. So let's just pick one of each. You can always start typing and it will give you whatever is referred to those letters as well. Okay, now let's do the region. So the region will have to be based off this one. Now, we first need to name the regions. So I've just put it in a range like this. You can simply select the whole range. We'll go to formulas, we'll say create from selection, and just untick left column, because otherwise it will take these ones and these ones as the named ranges. So just the top row is all we want here. So what it's done now, it's basically created 5 ranges for us. To check that, we can go to the name manager, and you will see here it's got USA, which has California, Texas, Florida, New York, and Illinois in there. Now we need to refer to that. So what it does, the list of countries is exactly the headings as it is here. It has to be exact because we'll use the indirect function to refer to this entry in the cell, and this would find the named range, the range that is named USA, and give us the output of that specifically. We can just test it here. We'll say indirect, and as you can see there, it gives us what is in there. Okay. So let's go to data validation, and we'll say equals indirect, and you simply just click on that one and remove. Let's remove the dollar signs. We wanted a relative reference, and say OK. So I haven't selected the whole range here. To copy data validation down, so as you can see now, it shows us only states in the US. We can just simply copy this and paste it there, and it would automatically, because we didn't put an absolute reference, it would automatically just draw it down. So this one would work off this cell would work off this cell, and so on. So let's choose, but I'm going to show you there is a mistake here, but I'll show you what it is. Okay, now as you can see, by South Africa, it's not doing anything. So let's just investigate and see why that is. We'll go to our name manager, and when we look at South Africa, we'll see that it replaced the space with an underscore, because in the name manager, you cannot use a space as inside a name. You have to use a dash or an underscore or something like that, normally an underscore. So what we'll have to do is just fix our formula, and we will say indirect, but we will replace. So we will say substitute. We'll look in B4, which is the cell here. What are we substituting? So we are substituting a space with an underscore, like that. So you substitute the space with an underscore. Sorry, I have to close the brackets there. And now it would give us the entries in South Africa. Now you can imagine to do the third one, we will basically just refer back to these. The only thing that differs is now the named ranges become so many more, because you'll have 5 different ones with 5 different cities. But I've created all of that. So I'm going to do it the quick way. I'm simply going to highlight this. I hold in my control button and I highlight the next range, the next range, the next range, and the next range. So this would be all our cities in each one of these regions or states or provinces. And we'll go to formulas. We'll say create from selection. Again, we untick the left column, say, okay, if we go to our name manager now we'll have a whole lot of different named ranges. And we can literally just, type in the exact same formula again. List equals in direct, substitute. We are now looking in the cell. We are substituting spaces with underscores. And now it would show us different cities inside New York. If we were to change this to Florida, it would show us cities in Florida, and so on. And just copy and paste it. Sorry. Okay, and that's how you can do it. So can you do a fourth one? Well, of course you can. You can do as many as you want. The only thing is you will have to structure your ranges in such a way, and you can never use a duplicate name. So if, for instance, we've got London and there's another city with London, like there is here, you'll see that I changed it to London OT, just referring quickly to Ontario. But you can never use the same named range because it would either override or reject the previous one. So it would always have to be a unique value for your named range. But let's just do this. So I've basically just done a whole lot of different things. I've just added some street names for each one of the cities. Again, let's go to formulas. We'll say create from selection, but now I want to say my left column. So now this would be my name of my range, and it would work according to columns and not rows. I can simply just copy this whole thing here, paste it there, delete the validation, call this street names. And now, why did it automatically give us my street names when I didn't even do anything to the data validation? Let's go have a look and see. So what it does, because I copied it over and it's moved over exactly 2 cells, it would automatically move the column over from D, where this one was reading from column D. It moved it on 2 cells and it's reading from column F now. And now we can choose different streets in the specific city. And just by the way, these are all real street names in each one of these cities, but you can add as many as you want. As long as you've got enough space. So best to always put this in its own spreadsheet. You can carry it over multiple spreadsheets. As long as you don't duplicate the names of the ranges, you can literally do as many as what you want, many dependents as what you want. Okay, and then our last part is what this little circle invalid data is. So let's just do a couple here. So I'm just going to switch off the error alert here, and we'll say this must be a whole number between 1 and 5, but I'll type in 6 there. And this must be a decimal between 10.2 and 15.7. We'll make this a warning. Yeah, we'll continue there, that's fine. This needs to be a date between 1 March and 10 March. Okay, we'll put 7 March, so this one is valid. And just quickly type in. Yeah. And so on. I'm just going to do it on a couple of them. Now, to see if there is data validation with errors, we can simply just say circle invalid, and it would automatically show you the ones where there are invalid data validations. So this one, let's change that to 5, change that one to 15, and change that one to 14. We can always remove the circles. If you are happy with it, just say clear validation circles and it will take them away. And yes, that is basically everything you need to know about data validation. There's a lot of extra things that you can do. You can play around with formulas and you can just see all the different options for data validation in Microsoft Excel. This specific sheet is available in the description as a download link. So it would be the sheet as it was before I started. So you can go there, you can download it, you can follow everything that I've done, just practice it for yourself and just get familiar with it. The more you play around, the better you'll get with it. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and please remember to give my channel some love by subscribing and liking my videos, and also have a look at all my other videos. I have a lot of Excel and also other application tutorials and courses in my channel. Thank you so much for watching.